this could potentially be a long review, so if you want to pause the video for a moment, get yourself a drink, get yourself a snack, etc., I fully invite you to do that. But let me just say one thing right off the bat. You guys know the drill at this point. You know the schedule on this channel. I'm going to be doing a preview for Fastlane sometime this week, and I have an early prediction for you guys. And that early prediction is that nothing on that shit show we're going to see on Sunday is going to hold a candle, flame pun intended, to this show tonight. Oh yes, and I dare you, any of you out there that are left that are going to try and tell me that SmackDown is not better than Raw, and right now, unfortunately, better than NXT, you need Jesus Christ in your life. That's it. That's all. Let's get into SmackDown. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here at Ridiculous O'Clock with your February 28th SmackDown Live review. And let's just say, last night was the go-home Raw for Fastlane, and they talked about part-timers, and they talked about feuds that aren't even happening at Fastlane, etc., etc., etc. Fastlane's gonna suck. We'll get into that later this week. Why is shit falling? Why is this a thing? I don't know. This show, I said it before, I will say it again, and I'll probably say it again and again and again throughout this video, was better than what we're going to get Sunday. I will say that right now. We start off with Shane and Daniel Bryan in the back reviewing the Harper Styles tie from last week, and yes, we know Harper fell first, and that's why the camera angles were all fucked up and whatever. And they basically sit in the back and they tell AJ Styles that he's lucky that he has a second chance to main event WrestleMania. AJ Styles shoots his mouth off, not knowing that Harper's standing behind him. They have a stare down. It's very funny. We start the show proper with Miz TV, and we replay Miz eliminating John Cena from the Battle Royal last week after John Cena eliminated The Miz from the Battle Royal last week, and we saw the stuff with Maurice and the pipe and the Carla Homolka deal to Nikki Bella's knee during the street fight with her and Natty. It's all good. He announces that John Cena is his guest. John Cena comes to the ring. Miz says, no, fuck you. You don't get a microphone. I've got 10 years of frustration to get off my chest, and you need to know how much you've cost me. You know, you've cost me so much because your word is the gospel in WWE. You manipulate everybody you encounter. You talk to the right people. You make the right connections. You shake the right hands. And he just says, you always make everybody else the other guy, and I'm not going to be the other guy anymore. I am the Miz. You make everybody else into the other guy. And he talks about WrestleMania 27. Now, here's where I'm going to go with this for a second, because Miz goes on the typical complaint, you know, the heel complainer, you know, blame everybody else but himself shtick. He does it quite well, but he makes a point with WrestleMania 27, and I've always said this. There's a 5-point problem with WrestleMania 27. If you don't remember, if you don't recall, I don't know why my glasses don't want to sit properly on my face, but that's another story for another day. If you recall WrestleMania 27, it was John Cena versus The Miz in the main event, and it was all a big setup for the next year's, you know, twice in a lifetime with The Rock and John Cena. Now, there's 5 problems I've always had with this. If you look at all the elements of that match, Miz was the WWE champion. That's 1. He was defending against John Cena. Point number 2. At WrestleMania. Point number 3. In the main event. Point number 4. And he won. Point number 5. Those 5 points should have skyrocketed his ass to the top of the fucking card. And it didn't. He was an afterthought. He was used as a commercial for their match next year, which was a main event, but not even a title match. So that's kind of bullshit, and I've always stuck to that, even though I've given John Cena credit in the past couple of years, because part-timer, put over a couple other people, did the US title, invitational, blah, 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 introduced Kevin Owens, etc. But WrestleMania 27 has always, you know, stuck me right in the git, because Miz is my guy. And he got fucked. And he got fucked in ways that even non-Miz fans, even Miz haters, could admit that all those things should have added up to Miz being a fucking superstar, and he wasn't. So it's a perfectly good point. He says, it was supposed to be the best night of my career. I'm not the only one that sees it that way, and he points to the fans. And he says, you know, you talk shit about The Rock the following year about how The Rock went away. The Rock didn't give a shit about the WWE. He went off to Hollywood and left us all behind. Rah, rah, rah. And now you're doing the same thing. You've heeded the call of Tinseltown. You know, that big money making phone call, etc., which gets a legitimate, and it's not just trolling John Cena, but it gets a pretty legitimate "you sold out" chant from the crowd. You did sell out, and you're. Can't read my own damn writing. He says, you did sell out. These people are exactly right. But you're not even John Cena anymore. You're a parody of yourself. Super Cena has become barely decent Cena. And the reason I've got you out here tonight is you were gifted a title shot and a shot at history at the Royal Rumble. I threw you out of the Battle Royal last week so you could feel how I and we all feel. I'm a mark for The Miz. I fully and completely admit that. I am biased towards The Miz because I think he's one of the greatest heels WWE has. Yeah, I do. Fight me down in the box below. But this is one of the best promos I think Miz has ever cut, and it was fucking fantastic. What I've written here is the bare skeleton of what he said in this opening promo. Now, those of you who see me on Twitter mocking Raw because they do a talking spot every week to open the show, this was good. Theirs are shit. This doesn't happen all the time. Raw's does. So suck a fuck. Cena comes back with the typical Cena stuff for the most part. That's the same thing everybody else says. You've got your own show, you've got your own microphone, and all you can come up with is what everybody else has said to me 100 times. This is the greatest thing ever. Talk about feeling out the fans and taking a dig at The Miz all at once. If I was such a puppet master, I wouldn't be standing face to face with you here in the ring right now. I'd be standing face to face with The Undertaker. Fucking great. It's easy for guys like you to blame me, but at least I know who I am, and who the hell are you? You're a guy from the real world named Mike who shortened his last name because he thought it sounded cool. When you got here, you tried to be Jericho. You stole Ric Flair's figure 4 and half of Daniel Bryan's offense. You have zero identity. You're a dude dressed as a dude playing a dude in a shell of a WWE superstar. You're not The Undertaker, but if you don't get out of my face, you could be a dead man. Fine, wonderful, fantastic. John Cena goes to leave. Maurice, of all people, who should not be given a microphone, I'll give you that much. You don't deserve to be here. You don't leave until we tell you to leave. Your problem is your ego. You're a control freak. You're a big ego with a small package, and she slaps John Cena across the face. John Cena actually visibly starts shaking. He says, you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. Out comes Nikki Bella. And Nikki Bella says, you put your hand on my man again, and I'm gonna break you, bitch. Now, I will say something. Nikki Bella is not the greatest thing to ever happen to women's wrestling. John Cena is not the greatest thing to happen to pro wrestling, period. I know what John Cena is. He's an icon for the... Not an icon in the wrestling sense, but he is an icon. He is a figurehead for the company. Nikki Bella, at least at one point, was the John Cena of the women's division. Not the greatest wrestler in the world by far. Very marketable. She was able to be the figurehead of the company. But I'm sorry. I might be a little human when I say this. They've never been together on screen. And they look so genuinely happy to be together on screen in a story that I'm sorry, I'm happy for them. I really, really am. And this match at WrestleMania, yeah, it's going to be filler. Yeah, if you don't give a shit, you can go get yourself some pretzels and a beer, whatever. If this match is going on the way everybody says it is and the way it looks like they're building it right now, I'm going to watch it because it's going to be good in its own way. Is it going to be a fantastic wrestling match? No. Is it going to be an okay wrestling match? Is it going to have some comedy spots in it? Is Maurice terrible and that's why she hasn't been in the ring in forever? Yes. Is Nikki Bella going to have to tread lightly because the neck that's forcing her to retire is already causing her problems? Yes. Is it the one wish that she wanted, so I've heard, before she retires, to have one match at a pay-per-view with her boyfriend that doesn't affect any major title scenes, doesn't affect any major main events, and is just itself in a bubble once before she retires? You know what? I'm happy for them. And if Miz and Maurice get to be the other half of that coin, hey, Maurice gets to be up against one of the bigger names in the women's division, and the Miz gets to rub shoulders with John Cena again at WrestleMania. Everybody wins. It's not going to knock the world over. It's not going to be anywhere near the main event scene. It's going to be an in-between match. You put this between the two title matches or something like that. And for what I've heard rumored is going to happen after the match, it's going to be a happy feel-good moment. You know John Cena and Nikki Bella are going to win. It's fine. It's whatever. She's going to be Nikki Cena eventually. It's going to happen. But it's all good. This is set up for that. They didn't actually make the challenge for the match for tonight, which is what I thought they were going to do. But we're moving that story forward. Becky Lynch versus Mickie James in a 2 out of 3 falls match after Mickie James cost her the title. After Mickie James cost her the title again last week against Alexa Bliss. She wants a 2 out of 3 falls match. So we have Becky Lynch versus Mickie James in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Collar and elbow tap and a side headlock by Lynch, who works the arm. Shoulder thrust by James and a baseball dropkick by Lynch. Front face lock by James and a hangman and a half Nelson. Knee lift, snapmare by James. Rolling clotheslines by Lynch. Dropkick, corner forearm by Lynch. Snake eyes by James. DDT by James pretty much out of nowhere. Gets the first pinfall for Mickie James. James stomps the head, kitchen sink and a lariat by Lynch. Top rope miss by Mickie James. Don't know what she was going for, but a quick roll up by Lynch gets the second pinfall. There we go. I can speak, I swear. Second pinfall for Becky Lynch. Both women trade punches, an exploder suplex by Lynch. Bliss shows up at ringside to distract the referee. They trade a couple roll-ups, but the disarmer gets a submission win for Becky Lynch over Mickie James to end it all. She beats the numbers game and all that sort of thing, gets 2 falls to 1. It's all good. If we're going towards Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss one more time for the title at WrestleMania, that's the best move they can do. I hope that's what they're doing. Anyway, because they did a backstage segment with Alexa Bliss and Natalya that was like, oh, we're both championship competitors and I could get your title one day, and rah, and it was crap and nobody wants Natty anywhere near the title scene. But what we get in the back is Alexa Bliss cutting a backstage Oscar-like promo about being the first ever 2-time SmackDown Live Women's Champion, and then she mocks Naomi for being a gimp, which makes me smile. Luke Harper versus AJ Styles is the mid-card main event, even though it's for the #1 contendership to the World Championship, but that's okay. Luke Harper versus AJ Styles. The one thing I do have to say is WWE really are dicks sometimes. One of the cool things I like about SmackDown in exchange for Raw is when they have the graphic when they come out to the ring. They call it a lower third on Raw because it's in the bottom corner. I don't really call it a side third. And they usually have the little tidbits of information about the superstars. Typically, American Alpha have like the colleges that they wrestled in, etc. Friggin' the graphic for AJ Styles still says, lost the title to John Cena at the Royal Rumble. Why? That's just a dick move. Anyways, collar and elbow tie up and a toss by Harper, punches by AJ on the post, and a headlock by Styles and a dropkick by Harper. Styles eats the guardrail, then the steps, then the commentator table, all thanks to Harper. They're brawling on the outside. Pele by Styles and stiff kicks to the back. Mudhole by Styles, who then works on the knee, and they trade some more punches. Back elbow by Harper. Senton Atomic and a catapult by Harper. Suicide dive by Harper and a Hurricane Rana by Styles. Dragon suplex by Harper. Hangman by Styles. Enziguri and a phenomenal forearm by Styles. Gets the win! Except it doesn't because Harper's foot is on the ropes. So Shane McMahon comes down, getting in Styles' face, restarts the match. There's a quick pinning reversal sequence. Harper tosses Styles out of the ring. Styles banters back and forth with Shane McMahon for a moment. Harper goes to boot Styles, hits Shane. 450 splash by Styles, gets the win for Styles. Again. So all the thoughts that you had going forward about a Wyatt triple threat match at WrestleMania just went down the fucking drain. Oh yes, because right now AJ Styles is taking on Bray Wyatt in the main event of WrestleMania. I swear to God, Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg fighting over the fruit roll-up belt on Raw is looking really lame right now. Ellsworth and Carmella, for reasons, confront John Cena and Nikki Bella, and there's going to be a mixed tag next week. Yay. We see the video footage that we saw on Raw, that Beth Phoenix is going into the Hall of Fame. Now, this is where I need to tell wrestling fans once again to suck a fuck. I agree with you. Chyna should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. Beth Phoenix also deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And one does not affect the other. Her husband is Edge. Edge, the year he went into the Hall of Fame, people were bitching that he shouldn't be in because Randy Savage wasn't in. Him being in had nothing to do with Randy Savage being put in. Two completely separate, scenarios in two completely separate bubbles. Beth Phoenix has nothing to do with the fact that Chyna's not in the Hall of Fame whatsoever. Really, really doesn't. So you can't put Beth Phoenix in until you put Chyna. Is garbage. Is absolute garbage. Is Chyna more deserving than Beth Phoenix? Absolutely. But you're not going to hold up the whole works until all the political bullshit dies down about China before she can get let into the Hall of Fame. You can thank Stephanie, Triple H, and Vince McMahon for that. But it's the same as the Savage thing. Edge is not to blame for Randy Savage at the time not being in the Hall of Fame, much like Beth Phoenix is not to be blamed now. Now, it's a cool little thing I read on... if any of you check out the articles over on CB Over the Ropes, there's a little bit of history going in right now, because you got Beth Phoenix and you got Edge, who are the first married couple to both be enlisted in the WWE Hall of Fame, which is cool. Edge is a Hall of Famer, married to a Hall of Famer, who also dated another Hall of Famer in Lita, so that's a cool little thing right there. Ambrose versus Hawkins basically doesn't happen. Ambrose hits him with the dirty deeds, tosses him out of the ring, doesn't give a shit about the match, calls out Corbin. Corbin cuts a sort of mediocre promo on the screen, doesn't really give him an answer on anything. Predict that these guys are going to fight over the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. Ziggler and Cruz in a chairs match was better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie. Basically playing up the story, you know, Ziggler's been attacking everybody after the matches with chairs, and everybody right now is basically Apollo Crews and Kalisto. Because Kalisto doesn't belong in the Cruiserweight division or anything. Crews jumps Ziggler on the ramp to start the match just to show how pissed off he is. Brawling and suplexes by Crews. Ziggler works the bad ankle, which is a nice story from last week. Neckbreaker by Ziggler. They trade punches and a dropkick by Crews. Moonsault by Crews off the apron. A jawbreaker and a back elbow. Boot by Crews. A lariat, an enziguri, and a standing moonsault on the chair, which is nice. Back elbow by Ziggler. Back suplex on the chair by Crews, but here's where it gets kind of ugly. Spots we've seen before, but they're still great nonetheless. Ziggler sets up a chair, standing up. Drop toe holds Crews throat first into the chair. Crews sold it well enough that I thought they botched and he actually fucked up his throat, because the match kind of stops for a second. But when they find out that he's okay, that he can continue, Ziggler, politely enough, picks him up, crotches him on the chair that's still standing up straight, and gets the roll-up win, and basically goes on a tirade after the match. This is what I do to clowns like you. Which is fucking great. I think these guys are going to fight again at WrestleMania. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. If it does happen, it's going to be on the pre-show. I just hope they keep Kalisto out of it, because one-on-one, these guys have great matches. Kalisto's sort of the odd person out, isn't he? Now, Bray Wyatt has said since the beginning of the night that he's going to come out and he's going to have his invocation tonight for the WWE Championship shot at WrestleMania. He addresses AJ Styles' win, which is great, but he says it doesn't really matter whether it was him or whether it was his lost brother Luke Harper, as they're both mortal, and they're going to realize what happens when you come into the ring and meet up with a deity, the devil himself, Beelzebub, etc. I come from where Randy is right now, because Randy Orton is not with him. But then Randy Orton shows up on the Titantron. And I can't really properly put this into words, but it was badass. I watched this show a bit late. My sister-in-law texted me via the Facebook there and said, "Did you see Orton and Wyatt? That was fucking badass." And I'm like, I didn't see the show yet. You can't really ruin this for me. But Orton is at the Wyatt compound, and he says, "This was never really my world. I always told you, you know, if I can't beat them, join them. But when you can beat them, screw them." Talks about how he's going to get his title at Mania. And he says, "I know why this place is so important to you. I know Sister Abigail lies beneath these floorboards." And he talks on and on about like how much Sister Abigail meant to Bray Wyatt while he's got a pickaxe over his shoulder. And they keep flashing back to the ground. The ground's already been broken up, and you can see the ground, and you can see the bits of flesh, you can see the worms, you can see the maggots. I don't know why he's got the pickaxe in his hand other than for symbolism. You know, how long ago was it that, you know, Sister Abigail breathed her last breath? The maggots and worms have been eating at her soul for a long time. I could destroy what makes you tick. You know, you were always the servant and I was always the master. Or, sorry, you were always the master and I was always the servant, but after I destroy what makes you tick, I'm going to be the master. You were going to be the servant. He puts the axe down after not doing anything with it, which is kind of cool. Pours gasoline all over the rocking chair, all over the floor, into the grave, all over the walls, leaves the cabin at the Wyatt compound, splashes it on the outside. You're going to hear Abigail scream, just like she screamed all those years ago, sets the entire thing on fire. What sells this for me, because the video itself is kind of corny. It's Randy Orton kind of mugging for the camera every time he says something. It's kind of like, I'm breaking out of your trance and I'm back to just being an asshole. What sells it is Bray Wyatt. Because Bray Wyatt is absolutely apoplectic in the middle of that ring. He's you know, between being pissed, being helpless, crying. And by the time he's done, he's banging his head off the commentator table. And by the end of this promo, by the end of the fire being, he's in tears, slouched down between the two commentator tables, just in tears, shaking for what Randy Orton has just done to him, burning the remains, presumably, of his sister Abigail. It's kind of cool what they've done here. It's really, really badass what they've done here, because it's an Undertaker-like story. It's, you know, if somebody ever threatened to mess up the Undertaker's urn, you know, steal his casket, etc., to finally directly address this unknown entity known as Sister Abigail was really, really cool. What I have a problem with now is we've just spent all this time establishing AJ Styles as the new #1 contender. Orton earned that at WrestleMania. Now, if they're going to have a triple threat match, you got two guys that want to absolutely rip each other's throats out, and one guy that's just going for a title. That's a very disproportionate story. Or are you going to have, somewhere along the way, Randy Orton versus AJ Styles one-on-one on SmackDown, to get that one-on-one shot at WrestleMania? Because Orton versus Wyatt could be good. Styles versus Wyatt could be good. The triple threat match could be good. You find yourself in a very, very similar situation, actually, to the Kevin Owens, Goldberg, Brock Lesnar scenario, because you want to think that Lesnar is going to go to Fastlane on Sunday and attack Goldberg because he's mad at him. But he also wants Goldberg to win that title so that their match at WrestleMania can be a title match. What do you do here? Do you screw over Orton on SmackDown and have AJ Styles win and go on and have the ultimate glory of fighting at WrestleMania? Or do you make sure Orton wins so you can get your hands on him one-on-one for what he's just done to you in this big dramatic scene? It's very, very cool. It's a very, very, very cool sort of cerebral story that's unfolding with Orton and Wyatt. It's very, very cool. It's very, very cool how they're you know, they're progressing this Cena, Nikki, Miz, Maurice storyline that nobody wants to see except me, because I'm going to laugh a lot. This was a really, really fun SmackDown. This was genuinely, and I'm going to say it one more time, this episode of SmackDown will be better than what we see on Sunday from Raw, because Raw's a piece of shit, and this is fucking golden. And it's even going to be a downplay tomorrow night when I review NXT. I'm pretty damn sure of it. But this was fucking phenomenal. Congrats to AJ Styles. Everybody thought Luke Harper was going to win, and we were going to get the Wyatt triple threat and Roddy Raw, and halfway through the match there'd just be some sort of turning moment and RKO to Bray Wyatt, and that would be it. This was so much cooler, so much more affirming for those of us out there that are big fans of Bray Wyatt. Know that he's going to be that next Undertaker-esque character. You really get into the mythos and the mythology of the Bray Wyatt character was absolutely fantastic. This was a lot of fun tonight. And I've said it, I've been saying it for the past couple of weeks, I'm going to call WWE, and I'm going to tell them I want to order the blue half of WrestleMania. It just is what it is at this point. Anyways, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.